basically what Kerry has been talking about.
Well, some people come as no surprise that I agree with him.
Yes, some people are saying, and John McCain is one of them, that perhaps we ought to move up this January 5th date that has now been set for having elections in Iraq. Should we move that date up?
It may not be practically possible. I do think this period between July 1 and the end of January is going to be a very precarious position, because this is going to be a weak interim government, not only because it's new, not only because of the internal divisions, but because the Shia majority through Ayatollah Sistani has made it clear that until there are elections constituting a real government, he does not want to see an interim government with great power. So if it were possible to move up the date consistent with conducting fair elections, I think that's something we should look at. I think it may be, I know the UN does not feel it can be done in lesser time, but it's a vulnerable period between July 1 and having elections.
Secretary Berger, talking about this international structure, do you think that is possible in practical terms? Clearly, the president seems to be moving more toward that than he seemed to suggest in the beginning when we started all of this. But an international structure would also mean finding some way to bring in troops from other places. Do you think that is doable these days?
Well, in the first place, you have to ask whether the participants would agree to put in more troops. I don't think you can expect anything from the French, for example. And again, I have to be very careful here when I say that it's maybe possible, in the sense that I don't mind that so long as the UN then is not in charge of the military aspects of this thing. We have seen too many times when the UN gets involved in these things and we have to go to the Security Council every time you want to sneeze, that it becomes a real mess. I think it's possible to bring in troops. I'm not at all sure, in fact, that it's really necessary. And by the way, I should say as well, I think we've already begun to turn over authority. I was frustrated as I could be at the fact that we were not moving fast in Kavala and against the al-Sistani, but I've now come to the conclusion that basically we slowed down because that's what the Iraqis told us they wanted. And if that's the case, it does seem to me that we are already listening to the Iraqis fairly clearly, and I suspect it's going to continue that way.
Do you think we don't need more troops, Tom Friedman?
Well, at this stage, Bob, I think we can only finish this war by engaging in what is an urban war, basically, whether it's in Fallujah or Kerala or Najaf. And we, Americans, English-speaking Americans, cannot finish this war. An urban war in Iraq that goes in and really gets the bad guys can only be done by Iraqis. Only they know Muhammad from Yunus from Ahmed. Only they know the families. Only they know the accents. Only they can do it. And I think we're entering a phase that is really unknowable. And the unknowable phase is what happens when we turn the keys over to Iraqis.
That's right.
You know, the old dictum that in the history of the world, no one's ever washed a rented car. I'm a big believer in that. No one's ever washed a rented country either. And what happens when Iraqis are no longer renting their country, but actually own it? How will they respond to the bad guys like the Sadrs and the diehard Ba'athis and the Al-Qaeda types there? Will they want to go in and now finally collar these guys? Who knows? How will this government consolidate itself? Who knows? I just think we're in a very fascinating transition. Myself, I don't feel American troops are going to be in Iraq a year from now, certainly in any numbers, because I believe as soon as you get an Iraqi government in there, they are not going to want to be protected by us. We are just too radioactive. Bob, we're so radioactive, we glow in the dark.
Well, Secretary Berger, do you think that that is absolutely, I mean, that that's possible, that the Iraqis can take this over? And when Tom says this, the question comes to my mind, what if they ask us to leave?
Well, if they ask us to leave, we'll have to leave, won't we? I don't think they will. And in fact, I would argue just slightly with Tom in the sense that, okay, we may be radioactive, but at the same time, I can't imagine an Iraqi government, this temporary one, that would be prepared to ask us to leave without some sense that they know they can control the situation, and I'm not at all sure that at this stage they can. I think as we stay in the barracks as much as we can, but if we're called upon to do something to support the government because they can't handle it, I think we have to be there for a while, even though we're radioactive. To walk away now and have it all fall down around our ears would be the worst possible thing we could do.
Yeah, I'm not advocating that, but I do believe that our presence is going to be gradually diminished, and I
sure,
think
I
we're
don't argue that.
definitely going to be moving over the horizon.
On the security side, I think it's going to be extremely important that we accelerate the training of Iraqi forces. We've trained about 10% of the Iraqi force that we need. In the meantime, we're going to have to carry some of the security load. On the civilian side, on the political side, to take Tom's rented car metaphor, we seem a little bit like the parents of a teenage kid a little reluctant to turn the keys to the car over when they go out in the evening. I mean, I think the fact of the matter is Iraqis are only going to feel as if they own their country and they have responsibility for its security if we turn those keys over.
Sandy, do you think there's any way that that we could somehow bring NATO in? I sort of agree with Secretary Eagleberger when he said, I don't think we want, and there's nothing to demonstrate that putting troops under the control of the UN works very well anymore. But what about NATO? Is there a way to get NATO in to help share these casualties? Because these casualties are continuing on, and I think we'll reach a point where the American people won't tolerate
it. Certainly would have been a lot easier last May when that statute fell. Had the president gotten on a plane, as Tom and others have said, had gotten on a plane and gone to Europe and called together all the European leaders and said, guys, this is no longer about whether you agree with us or don't agree with us on the war. This is about whether or not we have a stable or unstable Iraq. What is it going to take to get you guys in? So it would have been easier in May. It would have been easier in July. I still think to this day, the president over the next 2 weeks is going to be in Europe, I think on 2 occasions, perhaps one summit meeting in the United States. And I think this is really the last stop on the train to say to our allies, this is now a sovereign Iraq. We have a collective responsibility to make a sovereign Iraq work. We need your help. And I think that puts the burden on the others. And I think if they walk out of that room saying, no, we're not going to do it, at least we have the moral high ground. And I still think it's possible that if they don't, even if they don't send a large number of troops, we can put a NATO face on this rather than an American face on this, and thereby substantially reduce the resentment towards America that the current occupation engenders.
Tom, another terrorist incident in Saudi Arabia, multiple numbers of people killed, hostages taken. I now understand that the Saudi agents have freed some of those hostages. Is there a connection with what's going on in Saudi Arabia and what's happening in Iraq?
I don't think directly, but it would, to pick up on Sandy's point, Bob, it's another point I would hope the president would be arguing with our European allies. Guys, we now got a Saudi Arabia that's got a low-grade civil war going on. We have Saudi opposition groups, Al-Qaeda sympathizers, attacking fortified oil installations. We need to put Iraq, tilt that on the right direction. The last thing we need is 2 unstable countries there. But I think really what Saudi Arabia is reaping, Bob, are the wages of Wahhabi extremist ideology that was directed at us on 9/11, now being directed at the Saudi regime. You know, I was just sent the other day a piece from the Arab News by a Saudi liberal, and he's really asking, where are these guys coming from in our society? And I just want to read one sentence here. He says, have we helped create these monsters, we Saudis? Our education system, which does not stress tolerance of other faiths, let alone tolerance of followers of other Islamic thoughts, needs to be reevaluated. Look what happened in this incident in Saudi Arabia. Those terrorists came into this building. They said, who are the infidels and who are the Arabs and Muslims? You Arabs and Muslims, you're out. You infidels, over here. This is ugly stuff, and it comes from the core of Saudi ideology and education, and Saudis themselves are now starting to say it.
What you seem to be saying is that 9/11 may be part of some sort of Saudi civil war that's going on here.
I've always felt, Bob, you could do a revisionist history of 9/11 that basically describes this as a civil war with Osama bin Laden, comes from the richest non-royal family in Saudi Arabia and a certain ideological bent, trying to take on the Saudi regime, and it was by hitting us was a way of undercutting what he saw as the strongest prop of the Saudi